Hi there, my name is Matt Hamilton. I'm the author of Through Travel and Error, Confessions of an Asylum-Seeking Canadian. Welcome to the first of my online readings. Today it's the introduction, or as I like to call it instead, the forewarnings. So please sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy the listen. Forewarning. Many authors like to include an introduction or a foreword to offer insight on their books. It can be an account of their rigorous research, funny anecdotes, publication difficulties, or other various projects. However, because I have my readers' interests at heart, I consider it my duty not to call the following an introduction or foreword, but to call it, more accurately, a forewarning. I'm writing this forewarning well before the end of the book is anywhere in sight because it is important to warn you that I really don't know what I'm doing. It's true. I sat down to write a book because why not? I was living on beaches. I kind of like to write. I spent a little bit of time composing emails, and I wrote a few short stories. And I had this girlfriend there who read a few of these short stories and got to know some of the other antics I had got up to during the travels and suggested I write a book. So yeah, why not? I can write a book, why not? So I started my attempt at doing so. However, as I quickly learned, there were some obstacles that prevented me from really tackling the project the way it should have been. Despite having the luxury of a laptop, there was still one major hindrance impeding the book's completion. It's an obstacle I face when I look at myself in the mirror every morning. It's one I've worked long and hard to grasp and to come to terms with. It's one that's proving quite the Everest to conquer. This hindrance is that my ignorance proves a nasty snag when it comes to writing a book. During university, I studied history and political science. Although some of the history essays I submitted could easily have been considered creative writing, I never really formally enrolled in any English or writing courses. As a result, I haven't read enough of the classics. I don't understand style. My vocabulary is limited, and my grammar is pretty shitty. Basically, I was lacking all the ingredients essential to becoming a good author and writing a quality book. My formal education attempted to teach me that effective writing concisely and clearly expresses ideas. My professor said that a solid piece of work consisted of a to-the-point introduction, followed by a strong supportive body, and ended with a well-constructed conclusion. I didn't do very well at university, and thankfully, I never fully understood or adapted to this boring, structured, and monotonous approach to writing. Of all the history essays I plagiarized over the years, and there were many, I never once read one that, although technically correct, was mildly interesting. If I had used this style writing a book, I would have died of boredom years ago. Luckily, being from the heart of the Western civilization, I had another valuable educational tool at my disposal. This tool was a mentor that I idolized and listened to daily without fail. Without its influence, I wouldn't have attempted to write this book. While it's nice to know that my lack of grammatical knowledge and all-around ineptitude can be concealed with the aid of a skillful editor and spell check, I knew that a manuscript, no matter how grammatically correct, would never see the inside of a publishing house if it didn't have style. Style, baby, that's what got your foot in the door. Style is where I would have been in trouble if it had not been for my 36-inch mentor, the good old TV. The style I adopted is the Seinfeld technique. The genius of Seinfeld was that it was a television program about nothing. Well, almost nothing. Millions stopped what they were doing every Thursday night to watch four people do the same nothingness they had the week before. Why were we addicted to this sitcom? Brilliant writing? Talented acting? Mass advertising and promotional campaigns? We had nothing better to do at 9 on a Thursday? Subliminal messages? While all these are possible explanations, I believe that maybe, just maybe, it was because these irrelevant, silly scenarios offered something we could relate to. Maybe we knew that through the characters, situations, and predicaments, even in the most irrelevant circumstances, we could find a common point of interest. I believe it is the same with Through Travel and Error. My stories are really quite irrelevant to everyone's day-to-day existence. At initial glance, they may appear like no more than ridiculous yarns by some unknown, unimportant, everyday type of guy. And honestly, that is more or less what they are. However, if you allow yourself to open your mind, you might discover that within my blatant idiocies, there is something everybody can relate to, whether you've put a pack on your back or not. Within my random predicaments and experiences, there exists a point we can all learn from. If this haphazard approach worked for Seinfeld, it might just work for me. Through Travel and Error may be a book for travelers timelessly floating across the globe without a return flight home and questioning what it is all about. Perhaps it's for those who are unhappy being comfortable. Or perhaps it's for those people stuck in their well-paying 9-to-5 routines who seek some motivation or excuse to change the monotony of their existence. Or, when all is said and done, the book could strictly be for my parents, whom I constantly reassured that my seemingly endless travel would have a point. I really don't know. However, what I do know is that the stories are my actual experiences and observations about this funny little chunk of rock we live and move about on. I do know that the opinions expressed are solely my own, which is reassuring in a way. I do know that I made Canadian political history in the most improbable ways in the most unusual places. I do know that some of the names were changed to protect the innocent, or in some cases, the extremely guilty. I do know that some of what I've written will be left on the cutting room floor, or whatever the editing room is called in the publishing racket. And for those omissions, I apologize. But the creative editing was probably done to keep your dodgy author from being sued, extradited, or severely beaten up. All in all, that's not a bad thing. And I do know that if you're anybody other than my immediate family and you are reading this, or listening to this, I have overcome the literary and personal hurdles of my writing marathon and made it to print. Whoever you are, I hope you enjoy the read. And I hope you enjoyed the listen. So that was the forewarning. If you are still somewhat intrigued and like to find out what happens to me in this crazy big world of ours, please come back next week. And if you'd like to find out more about myself and or the book, Through Travel and Error, Confessions of an Asylum-Seeking Canadian in the meantime, please visit my website, madmattiesworld.com. Until next week, take care of yourselves, safe travels, and have a good one. Bye-bye.